Welcome back everyone to the 4th episode of Trick or Treat. I want to thank everyone again for such a great series, and for the last episode today, I decided to choose the film Trick or Treat. Now you may be wondering why I chose this film. Well, it's the name of the series. So again, to properly rate this film, we will be using the 5 S's. Other than that, let's get into it. Trick or Treat has 5 interwoven stories that all take place in the same town, Warren Valley, Ohio. Why is it always Ohio? It all takes place on the same night, which is Halloween night. We have constant time jumps back and forth, pretty much in a comic style panel. To sum it up short, the first story follows a couple, Henry and Emma. They both come back from a Halloween parade, and outside of their house, they have a shit ton of decorations. In the front yard, they have a jack-o'-lantern, and Emma decides to blow it out, which according to Halloween folklore, that is not right. It's actually a sign of bad luck. Now, with all the obnoxious decorations, she wants them taken down before her mother visits in the morning. Now, they decide to make it up after trying to argue about the decorations or the pumpkin being lit. She'll make it up to him with some bedroom time, and meanwhile, he's watching a special tape, if you know what I mean. And while Henry's watching his special tape, he ends up falling asleep from all the gooning. And then we see Emma in the front porch trying to take down the Halloween decorations. There's human feet, ghost bed sheets that look like the sheets in Halloween when Laurie gets jump scared. And the similar thing would kind of happen here, except it goes back to the first Halloween movie where we see the perspective of a killer trying to approach the front house. Emma is trying to take down all these decorations, and we keep getting pump faked as we think that something's going to pop out and scare her. Yes, something does jump out and pop at her, and it's in a sheet, so we can't really tell what it is. When Henry wakes up from his nap, we find out she's like mounted on a stake with the lollipop shoved in her mouth. The first story doesn't really go anywhere. It does kind of come back, but now we see the kid from Bad Santa walking around this neighborhood, and he's smashing pumpkins. The second story here is going to connect more than the other ones, and here we have in fact a interesting scenario, I would say. Now the kid from Bad Santa, or we could just call him Charlie, which is in fact his name in the film, approaches this front house where there seems to be no one home, but there is a bowl of candy outside, and yeah, of course he goes for the candy, and while the sign on the bowl says to take one piece, he takes the whole goddamn thing. Just before he sneaks off, fucking Kurt Connors is there camping for him.
Mr. Connors, what you doing there?
Now it's obviously not actually Kurt Connors. His name is Stephen Wilkins, and he's actually the principal of the local high school in Warren Valley. Now you don't want to mess with him, especially if you're trying to take his candy, but he actually seems like a chill guy, and he says, Charlie, hey, let's sit down and have a bro talk. While they're sitting down and talking, Charlie's munching on the chocolate, and Steven starts yapping, and before you know it, Charlie starts yakking and before you know it, he's throwing up chocolate everywhere. Quite grotesque here, but it doesn't matter because he ends up passing out on Steven's lap.
This could be dangerous.
Now, it seems like he intended to do so because he ends up taking Charlie's body and dragging it into the house. He would then throw his body in the backyard where it seems like there's other bodies in the yard. Turns out that Mr. Wilkins is a serial killer, and while he's trying to bury Charlie, we do hear a dog barking in the background, and poking through the fence is, well, a dog. He wants to keep it low-key because I don't think anyone in the town knows that their principal is a serial killer. All the commotion causes his neighbor, Mr. KREGG, to wake up. And of course, Mr. KREGG is played by no other than Brian Cox, and he tells him to fuck off in Logan Roy fashion.
Fuck off.
But while he's trying to bury the body, he also gets interrupted by his kid. His kid wants to carve pumpkins with him, and he's all like, yeah, leave me the fuck alone. He also mentions that he has a special date, which will come back into play later in this film. If you know, you know. It seems like everyone in the world wants to find out about his secret. He ends up becoming pretty successful as he buries the bodies, and when he goes into the basement and carves pumpkins with his son, we see Charlie's head severed on a plate. Perfect father and son activities. And that pretty much is story number 2. A lot of it gets tied into later in the film. Now, story 3 follows a group of young college women heading out for a night of Halloween shenanigans. They all go shopping for costumes, and one of the women is actually our main lead of this story, which is played by Anna Paquin. Her name is Laurie. She's a 22-year-old virgin waiting for tonight to be her big chance to get laid at this party. All her friends seem to find dates before they head to the party, as there's a Halloween parade also going on inside the town. During the Halloween parade, we do see a young woman and a man getting freaky in the alleyway. As it starts to get a little too ditty, the man starts licking on her neck, and before you know it, he has vampire fangs and ends up biting it. The woman freaks out and she's running in the alleyway all bloody, and turns out we see Henry and Emma from earlier. Being good Samaritans they are, they of course help her, right? Well, you'd actually be wrong because they think she's just a drunkard, and as you can see on the side, there's 3 other bodies all drunk and bloody and laying on the ground. Of course, thinking that she's just dressing up and being drunk and a freaky bitch, they decide to just kind of leave her and walk through the parade. That gives the chance for the vampire to come and give her another suck. And she ends up bleeding out and being left in the alleyway. Now, back at the parade, Laurie wanted to be left behind as everyone else got dates. She just wanted to walk there by herself and kind of reflect on her life. So we do cut to the forest, and it seems like it's taken a while for Laurie to head to this party. One of the friends in the group is actually Laurie's older sister, Danielle. She gets worried and gives her a call. It seems like Laurie's going to be fine and she's on her way there. Right before Laurie arrives to the party, we do see Danielle say probably the most important line in the film, in that she is the runt of the litter. Now, if you know what that means, you'll find out in about
few seconds.
As Laurie is in her little Red Riding Hood costume, all innocent, trying to walk and maybe get her virginity lost by a guy dressed in a baby costume. We do not see the baby, but we do in fact see the vampire pop out again from the woods. As Laurie is the smart girl she is, she tries to attack him, but unfortunately, he takes advantage of her and gets a bite on her neck. Now, it looks like Laurie is going to be vampire victim number 2, but we appear to see that her body, well, the outline of it as her little Red Riding Hood costume, is dropped into the party. Now, all the girls are freaked out, especially Danielle, and they go over to check the body. They go over to see what's under the cloak, and we in fact see the vampire. Okay, so what happened to Laurie? Now, Laurie comes out of the trees looking a little different here. Now, Laurie goes over to unmask the vampire, and it's no other than Stephen Wilkins. I mean, this guy's a piece of shit, and he certainly gets what he was asking for, as all the girls attack him and start to get naked, which you might think that sounds good, but it turns out that they're all werewolves. Practical effects were cool here, but yeah, they're all werewolves and they all munch on him like a good old steak. So this film is really out there, and now we move on to a story following a group of 5 kids. 4 of the kids are looking around the neighborhood trying to look for jack-o'-lanterns, and they stop outside one of their peers' house. Rhonda, who is known for being mentally challenged, but she's actually a savant. They see her outside the house, and one of the members, Schrader, asks her to borrow one of the pumpkins, and he in fact invites her to go along with them. Now, where are they going? Great question. They are in fact going to the town's rock quarry to pay a visit to some victims. Now, when they all arrive there, Macy tells them a story about how a group of mentally challenged kids drove off into a cliff and crashed into there. This was an intentional crash, as the parents of these children wanted to pay the bus driver to drive them off and ditch them, and the bus driver was planning on escaping in the first place, but one of the kids got loose and ended up accidentally driving it off with the bus driver inside. Apparently, the bus driver made it out, as the bus crashed into a giant pit of water in the rock quarry before it was filled up. No one ended up hearing since, and the town didn't really want to look for him or go more into the investigation because I guess they just didn't feel like it. So now there is the mystery that these kids' souls are at the bottom of the pit, and they decide as an offering to these souls that they should pay them a visit by giving them 8 jack-o'-lanterns, which represents 8 of the kids who were on the bus who passed. And that's why they collected them for Rhonda, and they all decide to go down to the quarry, which there is an elevator. Now, the elevator can only fit about 3 people, so the rest of the group goes down there. That'd be Macy, Schrader, and the girl with braces. It leaves Rhonda and the kid Chip, who is the kid wearing the pirate costume, upstairs while they all go down. Once they head down there, Rhonda and Chip go down the elevator, and Chip seems to be very scared. As they get down to the elevator, they look around and they see again bottom of the quarry, where there seems to be nothing but fog, rocks, and mystery. And when they're walking, they see a bunch of zombies, or I guess let's say the kids' victims. Rhonda runs away, and it seems Chip gets eaten alive by the zombie creatures, and as Rhonda is running, she loses her glasses and has a Velma moment. She gets so freaked out, she ends up falling over. She wakes up swearing that everyone died, but it turns out that all the kids were playing a prank on her, including Chip, and they wanted to see what her reaction would be. They would get what's coming to them, as Rhonda is upset and runs away and goes straight to the elevator. And while she's locked up in the elevator, all the kids are trying to get inside, but it seems that there's zombies trying to approach them, which would actually be the victims of the bus, and they all end up eating the kids alive as Rhonda heads up the elevator. As Rhonda is walking outside the quarry and heading home, we do see Sam. Now, Sam is going to be the most iconic figure in this film, and you again will see why in the next story, so let's get into that. Story number 5 begins with a group of 3 kids trick-or-treating outside of a house. They open the door and they see nothing inside, and what jumps out at them is a werewolf with glowing eyes, and they all run away. Turns out it's Wilkins' neighbor's dog, Spite, and the owner is in fact Brian Cox, who is trying to scare away the kids, and they end up leaving their sack of candy outside, and he bunks it himself. So yeah, Mr. KREGG is celebrating inside, watching TV, drinking bottom shelf liquor, and eating laced candy, which he does end up spaying out because it was in fact also from Mr. Wilkins. But while he's enjoying his time, he does hear the commotion outside, which we cut back to the part where Wilkins was digging up the bodies. But what I forgot to mention was that earlier, Wilkins was trying to go back into his house after digging up the bodies. Through his window, he saw KREGG getting attacked by something. Now, we cut back to that scene, and when he follows his dog after going back outside, when Spite was barking at Wilkins, he goes to the bedroom and he sees something under the sheets. He lifts the sheets and he sees a hand moving by itself. And while he sees the hand and is freaking out, he gets stabbed under the bed. And while his foot's getting stabbed, he turns around and sees Sam in the corner. So it looks like Sam can have his body parts come apart and play games with him. KREGG and Sam would have a Freddy versus Jason battle for a good 5 to 10 minutes. It would end up actually having Sam getting blown by a shotgun. As KREGG thinks he's going to make it out alive, he tries to walk out, and in fact Sam comes running at him again with his body parts. His hand actually in fact stabs him with the weapon that he uses, which is the razor blade candy bar. KREGG is now pinned to the corner, and it seems like Sam is going to end him. Sam grabs his other good old weapon, which is the half-eaten pumpkin lollipop. It looks like he's about to stab him with it, but KREGG is trying to defend himself by grabbing the bottle of bottom shelf liquor and trying to smash it over him. A table with a bunch of stuff falls over, and it looks like a chocolate bar ended up landing on his chest, which Sam would pick off his chest and end up eating it and then just walking away. But as Sam walks away, we look over to the fireplace and we see, in fact, the picture of the kids on the bus, which turns out Mr. KREGG was the bus driver. And as things seem to be going well for KREGG, as we jump to a few hours later where he's all patched up, he gets a ring at the doorbell. And this time he looks outside and sees Sam and all the kids in the neighborhood looking normal as usual. We also do end up seeing Emma and Henry from earlier, so it looks like time is kind of warped all over the place. Everything seems normal, and KREGG goes inside and he hears one more ring at the doorbell. He opens the door and sees no other than the 8 kids that he killed. Movie just cuts to black, and it kind of cuts to some comic panels where, yeah, gets the shit beaten out of him quite a bit. I know it's a lot, but it's condensed into an hour and 22-minute film. Which story do I like the most? It's hard to tell. I'll probably say the Wilkins one. This film is not super character driven, is more scenario based, but I found Wilkins to be so interesting because he is supposed to be this normal principal, but he ends up being this absolute psychopath with like 3 different lives. It makes it for such a good shock too, and he's also just not a likable guy as he's just killing kids and being an asshole. I mean, definitely the most hated character, but you also can't forget about KREGG. I appreciate this film because it's one of the few movies to pull off the anthology storytelling very well. It really does sell the idea of it being a Halloween film, which I feel like it's one of the few films to actually capture that vibe. I like that it appreciates all the folklore behind Halloween, but also talks about the modern traditions and how the holiday hasn't really changed, but it also has progressed quite a bit with all the standards, costumes, whatever it may be. It's a very raunchy film indeed. It was released in 2007, so it feels very 2000s, whether it's with this language or with how it's shot. It's refreshing to go back and see this film capture what Halloween was like, but I would say for the most part, it's not really trying to be a scary film. It can come off as a little frightening and disturbing, but it's refreshing that it's trying to just kind of have fun. It doesn't take itself too seriously, but it has quite a lot of twists that will keep you engaged, and with the way it jumps back from each story, because not each story just happens one after the other. It kind of cuts back and forth like an episode of TV, or let's say you're turning the pages of a comic book and you're seeing that be done. A lot of this film's praise is due to its pretty unique storytelling and execution, and also really good practical effects. I think the one part of the story that I'm not quite a fan of is probably the part with the kids. I found it to drag a lot, and I didn't really like how the flashback is done, especially with the way the leaf just falls and transitions into that. A little corny for my taste. I also find the execution of how the scene is done with the kids on the bus to be very cynical. There's just no remorse for humanity in this film, and just everyone's a piece of shit, and these kids just get dumped off because they're, I guess, a little different. A lot of brutal kills in this film, and it's just kind of done in low taste and can kind of make it disturbing, but also, again, just adding to the fact that it's raunchy just to be raunchy and showing kids to die just to, I guess, show kids die for shock value. Probably my one thing, I'm not quite a fan of this movie, but some people look at it as just a fun way to kind of tell this dark story. Visually, this film still holds up pretty well to this day. I liked a lot of its practical effects again, especially the werewolf scene. I mean, that's gotta be one of the best practical effects in the whole film, and especially from the 2000s. The way their hair rips off and the body transformations. It's also not trying to be super realistic with its special effects because, again, it's an anthology story about fantastical creatures and Halloween, All Hallows Eve lore. For the most part, you know, the CGI still looks good. Some of it's a little but I think it's on purpose because, again, it's kind of trying to be ridiculous. I give credit to Michael Dowtry, who is known for other films like Krampus and Godzilla King of Monsters, which I'm not a fan of those films, but what I do know is that he makes really good decisions when it comes to visual effects. Krampus is a film I actually just cannot stand, but in that film he has cool effects with all the creatures in it, and same thing is done here. Sam is so cool with the way his body parts come apart, and the way his pumpkin head looks is so freaky. You can definitely tell they used a mixture of practical and digital effects, which at the time of 2007 was kind of what they had to do. Kills are done pretty well too. I don't think there's a lot of actual just cutting. It's more so off-camera deaths, and then we'll get a still of some violent looking kind of fake body like Charlie's severed head or Emma on the stake. Like I said, again, it's not trying to be super disturbing like Terrifier, where we are getting kind of those off-screen deaths, but again, it's still rated R, so it's going to be grotesque. It's really hard to fear this film when the film's not that scary because it's not taking itself too seriously. There's a lot of scenes where it builds suspense, and there ends up being a few jump scares, but like I said, those are cheap jump scares. Its gore and practical effects are really what's going to disturb the viewer, and those are done exceptionally. One of the most disturbing parts of the film, I definitely have to say, is the bus scene, where the way it's shot is got this yellow color grading, and all the kids are just very unhinged, and the way it's done is, again, very unsettling. It's the one part of the film that I feel like it's not trying to come off as funny. What Dowtry's really trying to do here is be faithful to the holiday of Halloween, and his view on the holiday seems to be very cynical and just the world overall, and it kind of gets repetitive. And the fact that each of the stories are jumping back and forth and we only get to see them for a certain amount of time, there's not really a linear story that's going to build suspense from beginning to end, just throughout those short segments of the film. So you really can't latch onto characters except for one that's dressed up in a witch hat and gets called offensive slurs, which is actually a character you can feel fear for. Everyone else, though, is just an asshole and deserves to get what's coming to them. All for good fun, but that's not really what I'm trying to look for in a film. I'm trying to look for suspense and a linear character, but that's again why this film is different, and it's trying to execute and deliver on a bunch of other areas. It hits the head on the nail when it comes to schlock. Kids are getting slaughtered. There's a bunch of jerks in this film. There's a bunch of perverts and nudity, and it's just a ridiculous, batshit crazy film. And the fact that there's a little kid or whatever it is dressed up in this sack with a pumpkin face underneath and is attacking grown men with a razor candy bar is just funny in itself and just makes you go, what the fuck? There's just so many moments where are just so gross and feels unnecessary, especially when Charlie's throwing up chocolate everywhere and some of the vomit hits the camera. I'm not a huge fan of Dowtry's direction. He does a good job at really capturing the vibe of the Halloween town. There's lots of extras in the parade. Set scenes are really good and they feel grand. It's got a lot of warm lighting inside. And yes, it does feel like it is Halloween night and all this stuff is happening in the same movie, so it's very consistent there. It's not too flashy. Dowtry tries to be saucy with, let's say, the leaf transition, but that comes off very corny. I like, though, that he pays tribute to Halloween with the opening perspective of the killer. But for the most part, it's just characters looking around and camera kind of panning over just to see what's going on. It's not really doing a good job at building true suspense. A lot of people want a sequel for this film. Of course, they probably want Dowtry to return, but I actually would like to see Trick or Treat done through a different director. Maybe one with a little more sauce or has a different take on what the holiday would be like, or I guess this kind of folklore story. I mean, each story itself can be a whole feature film, and we wouldn't even need an anthology. Actually, I would think Trick or Treat would work in kind of a TV show format, have each episode be a different story. You can have it be like 30 minutes long and flesh out these stories more instead of trying to fit it all into an hour and 22-minute film. I don't even want to see Dowtry return because he's producing and writing films with people like Bryan Singer, and you know what that went to. Also, he's making shitty films afterwards like Godzilla King of Monsters and Krampus, which are starting to feel really outdated, and I feel like he just really did a good job at capturing that 2007 raunchiness and also creating for a new horror landscape of lore with this Trick or Treat story, which granted it deserves a sequel, but at this point it's been almost 20 years, so it's hard to try to capture that magic that he created. It's just fun to look back at, and it seems like over time people are beginning to have more appreciation for this film, which of course is awesome, and I'm glad that we're able to look at old archived media and give it some new light. Rating this film through and through, I would say story is a 7. It's an original story that takes a bold swing, and telling it through an anthology is definitely a creative way to go by about that. Some of the stories are lacking, I would say, but some of them even barely tie in, but for the most part, when those few connections do happen, I had a very fun time with seeing those reveals. Special effects, I'll also give a 7 too. Again, it's not trying to look super realistic, but when it does have those few practical effects that do work, such as the werewolves, I fucking enjoyed it. Scares, I'm going to say none, but I'm going to give it a 2 just because it does have a few disturbing shots and I guess a jump or 2, but I didn't even jump for that. However, it will make up in that category for having some schlock, which I mentioned in the very first episode of Trick or Treat. That'll be for bonus points, and usually it should go for about 5. Depends on, again, how schlocky the film is. With this one, I did find it to be one of the more schlocky films I've watched. Not like a B horror movie, but definitely a lot of stuff is done, and again, that poor taste, but it's also for fun, and I would give schlock about a 4. Sauce, I'll give a 5. Daughtry's not doing anything too crazy here, but he manages to capture that fun, spooky Halloween vibe that other horror films fail to do. Calculating all that together, this makes this film a 25 out of 40, which would be about a 60%. It's a passing grade, but does that mean it's really a treat? With this one, I'm gonna go either or. You like the twist there? I can see it being a trick, I can see it being a treat, so why not call Trick or Treat a trick or a treat? Candy time! For the last episode, I mean, I do have quite a bit of candy here, so I'm going to decide which one I will try, which we will try the Reese's peanut butter plant-based candy. When buying this, I was like, okay, I'm gonna eat all this chocolate, so it might be a little unhealthy here, so let's just balance it out with the Reese's. And I'm not gonna waste time here because if this is dog shit, I might want to try some other candy. So we're just gonna get straight into this. Holy shit, they raw dogged this. No wrapper in this packaging? Fuck it, we're gonna eat it.
Whoa.
Okay. No. I thought this was going to be one of the worst candies I've had. This is a trick. I mean, no, it's not a trick. It's a treat. This is made with oat chocolate, confection, and peanut butter. 210 calories, 3 grams of protein. Okay, it's bullshit. It's still, again, high calorie, but usually when I eat Reese's Cups, I always feel that acidicness in my throat. I don't feel that from immediately. We have the Terrifier Art the Clown chocolate bar. I wish I did a Terrifier video, but I'll just rip it for you guys. Opening up the packaging, it looks like it's, again, in a Hershey bar wrapper. Just gonna break off a little piece of that. It tastes like a crunch bar with no crunch. I'm not really a fan of milk chocolate, and considering the price for Art the Clown's face on the candy bar, I'm gonna say it's a trick. The very last candy I try will be a Twix cookie dough bar. I'm already having a sugar overload, so it might affect how my ratings are, but looks like a regular Twix, and yeah, I always take the left Twix. If you don't, you're diddy. Inside looks pretty normal, kind of maybe have some like cookie dough filling in it, so I'll just kind of eat this here. Might be the place I'm getting it from, but a little bit stale. That was just me. That's not it either. That's a trick. Just tastes very stale. Tries to have some of that cookie flavor, but this is not a good candy bar. Once again, this was the very last episode, and it's crazy to look back and see how far we've come. For next year, it'll definitely be a lot more episodes to come, and I can't wait for that. If you like what you're seeing here, I do have other platforms such as TikTok and Instagram, so if you want to find out those, it's just Joyride Films. But yeah, this is only the beginning. So much more to come. So with that in mind, enjoy the ride.